When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
In Walmart Sue Nouville, time was ticking away. Only a few nights left till the big holiday. But last-minute gifters had no need to worry. Walmart Express Delivery got their gifts in a hurry. From Nintendo to Nespresso and Lego flowers, they could check off their lists in as fast as an hour. All of Who Nouville, East, West, South, and North could order gifts up until 5 p.m. on December 24th. So this holiday, just do as the Who's do. With gift delivery this fast, they all gasped. From Walmart, who knew? Subject to availability, terms and fees apply.
Good morning, Crust. It's a great day to be a bread brother.
Ugh, mornings are not my jam. Or jelly.
Oh, come on. Stop loafing around.
I just woke up feeling hollow inside.
Just grab one of the new Morning Uncrustables sandwiches, like Bright-Eyed Berry or Up and Apple, filled with 12 grams of protein and tons of deliciousness. Crust, what are you eating?
It's just granola, not even yogurt.
No crust, no fuss. Uncrust your mornings.
Hello everyone, Chris here. Just a quick reminder that this episode of How We're the Podcast is sponsored by LifeScore Bet, a proud principal partner of Sunderland AFC. And if you're looking to get started, they've got a cracking welcome offer for new customers. Bet £10 on sports and get £30 in free bets. Simple as that. So if you're ready to join the action, make sure you're doing it with LifeScore Bet, the home of total betting. New members only. Bet more than £10 on sports within 14 days. Free bets valid 7 days. £20 to use on Sportsbook, £10 on Bet Builder. Terms and conditions and deposit exclusions apply. Please bet responsibly and remember, over 18s only. And now, cue the music. Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to How We're the Podcast, sponsored by LifeScore Bet. And I hope anyone who is listening to this on the day of release is getting excited for the visit of Santa Claus tonight, because it's our Christmas Eve episode. And although Christmas did come early for all Sunderland fans when we beat the visitors early this month, we have another treat for you today. Today we have a comedian who first hit the stage the best part of 20 years ago. He went on to create his debut sellout show, Football Manager Ruined My Life, which has led him to become the current host of the FM show that goes into more detail than you can ever imagine on Football Manager, with guests along the way, like the likes of Miles Jacobson, which I was really interested in watching the other day. But to top it all off, he's also a massive Lads fan. So I'm very pleased to be speaking to Tony Jameson. Hello, Tony.
Hello, mate. How are you? Are you well? Merry Christmas as well, by the way.
Yes, we were just saying before we started, isn't it? It's just manic at the minute. I mean, just trying to get sorted. Said the best bit of it happened this morning, so it was the meat delivery. But are you all sorted?
Well, just as much as I think I can be, to be honest. The Mrs. J has taken a lot of the heavy lifting with logistics in terms of shopping, deliveries and stuff. Although, having said that, it was meant to turn up today, and then she's texted us to go, oh yeah, it's going to come on Christmas Eve. So I was like, right, okay, hopefully we've got enough in the house for tonight at the time of recording. But it did mean that we're allowed to just go through, fine-tooth combs and that. Have we got enough sausage meat? Have we got enough seasonings? What sort of stuffing have we got? Just double checking it all, you know what I mean? Because you don't want to get there Christmas Eve and be panicking and then still end up back out at the shops again. So yes, hopefully everything's fine.
Well, that's it. It's getting those timings just right, isn't it? Where you get those deliveries, but you give yourself a little window if something doesn't turn up, isn't it?
Yeah, and especially if you're doing it online as well, you don't want we haven't got this, so we've just taken a wild guess and substituted it for something different. Because I'm very particular about what I've asked for. You know, if there's a specific cheese I want, I don't want you just guessing and going, oh, maybe you want this one instead. No, I don't want that. I want the one with the black truffles, thank you very much. I don't want orange peel put in it for no reason. So, yeah.
Well, that's it. To be fair, there's some things that I won't trust with the old deliveries. I mean, to be fair, like meat, all right, I get it from a place that I trust, but cheese and stuff, I've got to go out and get it in my hand, stuff like cheese.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, but then there's some of it, because I'm the only one who likes eating blue cheese, and none of the other family will like it, so I'm allowed my own little corner of the cheese board is for me. So there's some stuff in there that I'm like, right, get me a generic. I'm not that fussed because I'll just have to eat it over the course of 2 days anyway. But if it is something specific and particular, then yeah, we might go for when we go and get the meat. We might get like the little local sort of cheese and that and get them sorted as well. But yeah, this year, I think it's all done. Touch wood, it's all done.
Yeah, that's it. And then it's just all about thinking about tactics to be able to keep room for the cheese board, which I always feel terribly at.
Yeah. I think it's pacing. Really, that's the thing. I think sometimes you go out too hot on the starters and you go hard. And you go, right, starters I'm going to fill up on that, and then the main course is like that's the big thing, isn't it? So you pile everything on there, and you sort of go, that's fine, I can take this down. And then I think that most people fall is where they get a rich dessert. Now I prefer something that's not as rich. Mrs. J, she loves like a chocolatey dessert, and I'm like, nah, like give me something that's not quite as rich as that, because then I can leave space for the cheese board afterwards. I think if you go rich dessert, I think that's you done. Like you're basically in the corner, like sort of like getting your hamstring and your calves like sort of rubbed out for cramp.
I'll tell you what, if people are listening to this early on Christmas Eve, I hope they're taking notes and doing some revision and planning their tactics. But anyway, we've got a lot I want to talk to you about, Tony. But we need to start with the most important, I reckon, because we need to talk about your love of Sunderland. So how did you come to follow the lads?
Well, it's a long time ago now. Let's rewind all the way back to 1980 when I was born. Actually, let's come forward a little bit further. We were saying before we started recording that when we agreed to book this one in, I initially thought I was being booked for some comedic relief at Christmas, thinking, things have been dreadful. We've got 1 point. We're looking at February going, oh, well, we'll be relegated. Whereas now we're sat going, hey, this European thing's actually on, isn't it? It makes no sense.
Unbelievable.
St. Nick's already come and given us a Christmas present recently, which we're very, very happy about. Thank you. But yeah, so my affiliation with the lads has gone back. So family ties in the first instance, born and raised in the Full End. And I think the first thing I remember about Sunderland was the 85 Milk Cup final. I had the blue Tuborg away shirt, and obviously didn't have Tuborg on the sponsor because I was a kid. So I had that, the Milk Cup final, and then I started going to games probably about 87, 88 or something. So going in the Full End and having a great time then. And then there's a slight sort of pivot with Sunderland. So my parents split up when I was 11, right? And there was a slight act of defiance for a little bit where I was still going to Sunderland, but then I was sort of like, I don't know, do I sort of like rebel a little bit? I started following Villa for a bit, but it never leaves you. Sunderland never leaves you, right? So every time I was watching these Villa games, I felt less than when I was listening and seeing the Sunderland scores. And then the derbies would come on, like, Villa Blues, and I would feel nothing. But then the derby would come on, Sunderland versus the visitors. And I would feel it every single time, right? And just like, as I got older, I just fell out of love with Premier League football, and like comedy took over. So I wasn't watching anything. And I was just sort of like, I just kept looking at the Sunderland results all the time. I wasn't bothered about anything else. And I started to get back into it. And it was the time that we were starting to slip back down the Premier League table and come out of the league and into the Championship and that. And I went to the Swansea game with the Pickford's last season, and I had that, and the United game when we got done. And I was like, right, just, when you sort of, you feel like you're in the right space, like as we're sliding towards, I'm like, this is what I'm here for. Abject failure and sadness. And then obviously the Championship was dreadful that year, and then League One. And I felt at the time, right, that a lot of people were taking the mick out of us at that point. And I took it really personally. And I was like, this club is under my skin. Like, this is my tribe, you know what I mean? And you can't shift that at any point. So it was like, I was watching so much. I was watching everything I could watch when it was League One and the bottom of the Championship and that. And I was like, right, this is where we are. We're back here now. Like, you're not taking the mick out of us, right? We've got our backs up against the walls. And I just fell back in love again. I fell back in love again, and it just grabbed me. And I'm trying to get the kids involved now. And it's interesting to sort of show them a team that's successful, because I think usually with Sunderland, you go, this is where we are. It's normally quite sad. Whereas now it's like, look, we're winning games, and here's Granit Xhaka. But yeah, it's all decent, isn't it? And I was very, very lucky. Towards the back end of last year, I got a ticket for the Coventry game, which is one of the greatest nights of my life. witnessing that, and then I got a ticket to the playoff final as well, and I got to see Oasis a couple of weeks later. Honestly, this year has been the best year of my life, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I was just thinking there when you were talking that my lad, I think he was like 6 years old, and his first ever game at the Stadium of Light was against Shrewsbury Town, freezing cold. I think it was sometime between Christmas and New Year. I think 1-1 draw. And we were getting beat. I think Josh Madger had to equalise, and that was his first game. So, trying to take a lad and saying, "Oh, this is Sunderland in League One," and it was atmosphere was crap, and it was just tough.
I remember going to Roker Park and watching us play Southend, and a young Stan Collymore was playing, and he scored a hat trick against us, and I was just like, "Right, this is what it's like, is it?" And then being in the ground. I think I was in the clock stand actually when Bergkamp scores that goal against us. He does the pivot and he pings up in the top corner. Yeah. And I remember just standing and looking at that, just going, "Okay, fine, this is happens." And like for everything that's mint, when you sort of like see these great moments and you move to the Stadium of Light and that Peter Reid team, and like you're seeing sort of Kevin Phillips scoring like volleys against Chelsea, and you have all those magical moments. There's also the times when you're sitting going, "Have we lost 6-0 to Bolton?" Like, oh God, there's only us could do this, isn't it?
Pivotal game, to be fair, that Bolton game. But I remember that Arsenal game actually, because I was in the full end. I applauded that goal, and it wasn't a bad way really to sign off the last ever FA Cup game. At Roker Park, a moment of genius from Dennis Bergkamp. But just saying that, you were a few years before me. My first game was Manchester United 2-1 in 1990 with Gary Bennett turning into Pele in the last minute. But I imagine your heroes growing up, Marco, Gary Bennett, Eric Gates, people like that.
Marco Gabbiadini was my guy. Absolutely, he was. Yeah. I'm quite. We're quite fortunate now. So I live down in York now, and I take the kids to Junior Park Run on a Sunday. And Marco, of course, lives in York, and I was out running with them a couple of weeks back, and I had my Sunderland top on, and my youngest, he's got the away shirt from last year with the blue sleeves, like the 92 reissue one,
the promotion shirt,
the perfect shirt, the iconic shirt. So he was running with that. Me and the youngest like having a bit of dawdle about, and I'm sort of trying to like squint my head a bit. I'm like, that looks a bit like Marco Gabbiadini. I'm like running about. "Oh, Marco, you're right." And he's like, "Oh yeah." So got a picture at the end. So I had a bit of gabba with Gabbiadini at the end of the run. I was like, "This is brilliant." So yeah, he was my guy. Eric Gates, John Byrne as well would have been one. Darius Kabicki was a cracking player. I remember seeing us with Shay Given when he was on loan as well as a 12-year-old, I think it was, and he was like started. Just gone, he's going to be first team of him. And I remember he was class. But yeah, like players like Gary Hours and Paul Bracewell. But yeah, Gary Bennett was superb as well, man. We had some cracking players when you try and sort of like go back through the team and look at what we've had. And then there's like that period of like really, really good players. And then there's the period of just anyone who's in the area can have a game. Like if you turn up, you can play, right? We'll do you a shirt, right? In you go, away you go. And then like now we're at this era where it's like without sort of, we'll reference it as we go a bit further on. It feels like we're playing Football Manager now because some of these signings are just crazy.
It does. It almost feels like you've got to pinch yourself at the moment because it's easy to forget, but it's 3.5 years since winning the League One playoff final.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And in that time, there was talk with KLD going, there's a 5-year plan. Great, cool, excellent. Like, 5-year plan, that's good. In 5 years, we'll be out in the Championship. Awesome. And I think we'd all accepted that to think that's fine. We can spend our time in the Championship. It's a tough league. It's a really, really competitive league. I mean, League One's so competitive now because of the amount of teams that are dropping down. We maybe didn't realise how competitive it was going to be. A lot of teams saw us as the big scalps who were raising their game to go against us. It was their cup final, for want of a better phrase. And the Championship, we know the Championship is tough. And when we first turned up with Mowbray, we did a great job. We were doing as well as we could. We were holding our own. And Ahmad was just a little gift from the gods who just sort of he's like, oh, hello, I'll just take this league by storm, shall I? Fantastic. And then it was sort of like, we're not going to get promoted. We knew we weren't. That's fine. It's not a problem. And then the following season, we had issues. And then it, fixed itself last year. And it was just that whole, all right, well, what's Regis going to do? Like, who is he? Like, who knows much about him? Not really many people. I think we'd have all been a bit like, this is a name I've not heard of. This is a manager. Oh, I don't know. Is he just, another one of these, like, looks good on paper, quote unquote, foreign coaches that other teams have gone for, and some work, some don't. But my word, he's worked, hasn't he? He has worked, and he just got the city. He got the fans. He got the club, and the players have done the same. And I think that is how Sunderland can be successful, is you look back through history and every team that has been successful has had 11 players who have tried just as much as every single fan would do if there was a Tannoy announcement going, we need someone to come on the pitch and play. And that's all we've ever wanted. All we've ever wanted is 11 players to try just as hard as we will. We don't think we're going to be the best. We don't think we're going to win all the time, but we want to just give 115% every single time, because we will outwork you if nothing else, and we'll make you work hard to beat us. And we've now got 11 players that are willing to do exactly the same. And Reggie's just on the sidelines just going, yeah, they're doing exactly what I told them to do. And it's working brilliantly.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I mean, it's possibly a nice segue in a little bit to the kind of the fantasy that is Football Manager when we get onto that. But it is bizarre. Like, sometimes we forget this concept that a 23-year-old came in from nowhere, and people roll their eyes at 5 years plans. I mean, how many times do you hear owners right across football go, coming into this club, I've got a 5-year plan, and in that 5 years we'll do this. And everyone rolls their eyes and go, yeah, okay, whatever. It's another 5-year plan. But we had a 23-year-old come in by the club, and within, what is it, 4-5 years, take us from our worst point in history to potentially, well, who knows what's next.
It's like, how do we word it? When you see things, and there's that meme, isn't it, that goes around going, when commentators say you couldn't write this, and then they come up with the idea of, well, you've seen someone score the last minute goal, then of course you could write it, right? You could not write this. This is like this. If this was a film script, right, it would be laughed out of production. It wouldn't get to production. They'd be going, right, what? Hang on. So a 23-year-old is going to, there's the first sticking point that people would go, hang on, right, you've got an issue here, right? He's going to pick us up, as you say, in League One, and then he's going to instantly make it all right, and there's going to be no problems anywhere along the line, really. And even the problems, it's going to be a minor blip. It just doesn't make any sense, because that wouldn't make sense. And then if you say, oh yeah, and the club they're going to take over is Sunderland, you go, no, of course it's not going to work. Like, in 5 years' time, we're going to be in non-league. That's how it works normally. But honestly, like, I mean, there's a club up the road that have got a 5-year plan, and their plan isn't quite working out as well as ours is in terms of, like, getting as close as we can do. Yeah. But yeah, it just seems that he's managed to get the right people around him. That's what I like about KLD, is he's not done it himself. He's not been like, right, I'm the guy and therefore I'm making all the decisions. He's getting people in who know what they're doing. I mean, Speakman took a bit of flack in the initial stages, made a couple of mistakes, got a few things wrong, Michael Beale being one of them, but he very quickly learned from those mistakes. And then he got other people involved as well and said, right, let's come and convince, Gasolfi to get him. How do we pull him off? Like, the conversation about who's lined up to try and get him in, and then all of a sudden he's turned up at the Stadium of Light. I'm looking at this going, hang on, what have we got? Have we got information on somebody somewhere? Because it feels like everything we're touching is going really well. There's got to be a hidden camera show somewhere that comes out at the end and just goes, by the way, none of this is real, right? Okay, I can't believe you've believed it all. Because the second Granit Xhaka turned up, I was like, I just don't get it. This sort of stuff doesn't happen to us.
Yeah. And I think if you read it, if it was in like Roy the Rovers or something as a story about a club, you'll chuck it down and go, it's stupid. That.
Do you remember Dream Team on Sky?
Yeah,
Like it feels
unfortunately.
like that. Like for younger listeners who may be unsure what Dream Team is, Dream Team was a TV soap opera, a little bit like EastEnders or Coronation Street, but it was about a fictitious football team, and they had every single possible permutation of what could happen in the world of football, and it could only happen to this one team. That feels like what was happening right now. Like it feels like the scriptwriters are constantly in the background going, right, get them Granit Xhaka, that'll work, right? Okay, see how that episode goes. Right, find them a goalkeeper from Holland who's incredible that no one's heard of, but he'll be insane, right? Get him in there, good, lovely. Should we get them to finish in the top 6 at Christmas? Why not? That'll be a laugh, right? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, well, we went through them a little bit earlier on, but we've had, of course, we've had the Peter Reid era and we had kind of the Roy Keane era. But it always felt then that we were almost focusing in on, right, what we're going to do this for the next season or what we're going to do. It was almost season to season. But it's never felt as kind of sustainable and long-term as this current era it has.
Absolutely. Like everything felt very, very short-termism. Like Moyes felt short-termism. O'Neill didn't really feel like it was a long-term thing either. Weirdly, when Mowbray was here, and I was a bit unsure when Mowbray turned up, I was like, I don't know if Mowbray's the guy, really. Like I understood it logically. I was like, right, loads of championship experience, really, really good. Man manager, got some good contacts. I thought, okay, I can see it. It didn't excite me. But when I saw the football, I was like, right, okay, I get it. But again, I couldn't see the long-term vision because of Mowbray's age. I thought, well, we want to be getting a guy who's a bit younger. Then, of course, went with a guy who was very young. And I was like, we all sort of went, this is the wrong guy at the wrong time, at the wrong club. And it was like, right, what do we do now? But Reggie, I think, there's just this long-term plan of we're not firefighting. We're not it's not sticky plaster solutions anymore. Get to the end of the season, just make do with what we've got. All the signings are for the future as well. And there's a plan that even if it gets to the end of the year and we sell that player for twice as much, 3 times as much, 4 times as much as we bought him, we all get the impression that his replacement is already lined up rather than panicking and scrabbling around like what we used to do. Going, okay, we've sold a load of players. Who can we bring in? Right, what clubs got relegated? Who's their highest earner? Let's bring them in on a long-term contract, which used to always be the Sunderland way of not really having a plan, not really having a purpose. It was very reactive. This feels like someone's sat down in the boardroom and in the club and just went, right, this is what's called a planner. Right. Okay. And we're gonna use this going forward. And everyone sort of went, yeah, we probably should have used them a long time ago. Like, and it just makes sense. Like, there's an actual plan, a roadmap, if you will.
Yeah, because Sunderland and forward planning weren't words you really had in the same sentence. But anyway, we could talk for weeks about how great Sunderland are at the moment. But I want to get into a bit about you, Tony, because as I said, you started a career as a comedian around 20 years ago. But I read actually you were a college lecturer when you kind of decided, right, I'm going to be a comedian now.
I was. Yeah, I taught film production for 8 years to college and university students. 8 years, I managed to blag that before people realised I didn't know what I was doing. But yeah, no, I'd always wanted to do comedy. I did so I did my degree and my masters at Sunderland Uni. Way back in the day, I was one of the first into St. Peter's campus. We did the old Chester Road sites there when we were doing media, and I was writing scripts and I was like sort of coming up with sort of documentaries and short film ideas and stuff. And I always wanted to perform, like we'd maybe go to the Royalty back in the day or whatever, and see some bits and bobs there. There was comedy up there, and then of course the big music scene in the area at the time as well. So late 90s, early 2000s, but I never really knew how to get into it or what I wanted to talk about back then. So I went away, did some work, moved back to the Northeast, and me and my now wife were looking for some stuff to do in the area. And there was a local open mic night on in Newcastle at the time. It was every Tuesday. So we were like, oh, we'll go for a pint and that, and we'll go in there. It's £2 in. Like, if it's any good, great. If it's not a problem. And we went, and we went for like 6 weeks in a row. And I was like, okay, some of these people are decent, some of these people not so decent. Spoke to the guy who ran it. I says, what's the crack? Is there an audition process? And they're like, no, just stick your name down and in you come. So about sort of a couple of weeks after that, I basically had my name ready to go. I turned up, wrote my set about an hour before the show. Thought this would be fine. This is all right, 5 minutes. So I wrote 5 minutes of comedy before jumping on. It seemed to go all right. Then they said, oh, come back and do a different 5 minutes a few weeks later. Got involved in that and then just kept going and going and going. And just eventually, someone asks you to go and do a gig somewhere else. And then you're in Sheffield, and then you're in Manchester. And then eventually it just started picking up and snowballing. And yeah, like sort of still working the lecturing during the day for about sort of 4 years or something. We held on, about 4 years probably. Sort of doing that. So I'd teach during the day, then I'd get in the car, drive away to Edinburgh or Glasgow or whatever, drive back, get a few hours sleep, get up the next morning, go and do that again. And every day I just loved it more. Like that was what I was built to do, was be on stage and like talk to people. Because I'd kind of already had that with teaching and lecturing, that I was used to talking in front of people. So I didn't have that barrier to get over first of all, that skill to learn. And plus I was used to talking to 30 disinterested faces, so it's fine. That'll not be a problem. So kept going. And then eventually the college I was working at were making a round of redundancies. And they said, look, your job's at risk. What do you want to do? We can offer you your role for 10 grand less, or you can have this money here. And I was like, do you know what? I'm doing good enough at comedy. Like, this might actually be a good little chance for me to go and push it full time. So I was like, I'll take the money and run, thanks. And went full time for about 4 or 5 years, just comedy, my main income. And it was brilliant. Really, really brilliant. Did some fantastic gigs, met some incredible people. Like, just some of the comedians that we met on the circuit are the most interesting people you're ever going to meet. I gigged at the FIFA Museum in Zurich, which was bizarre to go and do a show there.
Did you have to bite your tongue and not make any FIFA jokes?
Do you know what? I was allowed to make one, and so sometimes you're actually allowed. You have to like sort of double check what you can and can't say. And I did one, and that was quite good.
We paid in cash.
Oh, I was paid in brown paper envelope. It was brilliant. This was back in the blatter days, so yeah. So we did that. Did some stuff with Kevin Bridges, which is like ridiculous to even think that's a conversation. And that came from things like I had this little 5-minute stand-up bit about playing Football Manager, which just sort of took off, because normally I was talking about my life and things that were relatable to people, I thought. And then I had this little bit about winning the Champions League on Football Manager. And I'd just do it on like Saturday night gigs, which you probably shouldn't be doing that sort of stuff in office parties and works nights out and hen do's and stag do's, but it was working. And then I did a show, and Kev was incredibly kind and asked me to do some warm-up bits for him. And he was mates with some guys who were writing a book a little while back called Football Manager Stole My Life. He said, speak to these guys who are writing the book. He says, try and get your story in it. And I was like, okay, cool. So did that. They wrote straight back, and they were brilliant lads at the Back Page Press. Popped the story in, didn't think anything of it. Adam Cleary, who used to work for 442, now is the Adam Cleary YouTube channel. He's in it as well. And then it gets back to Miles Jacobson, who's the head of Sports Interactive.
Yeah,
gets back to him. So I get a message from the head of PR at SI saying, "Oh, Miles is doing a talk in Newcastle. Do you want to go?" And I was like, right, okay, fine. So I popped in, and this is like this games industry event during the day, and I'd running late. I just sit myself down. I don't really know who I am or whatever. And it turns out I'm sat next to the head of PR that had emailed me. And Miles comes up, he says, "You're the comedian, aren't you?" I went, "Yeah." He says, I've seen this bit. I was like, okay, cool. He says, "Well, what's the plan?" And I was like, I don't really have a plan. I says, but I might try and write a stand-up show about Football Manager. He was like, "Oh, that sounds a decent idea." And I stupidly called it. I'll probably call it Football Manager Ruined My Life or something, thinking that he's going to say, "That's a dreadful title, don't do it." And he's like, "All right, yeah, sounds cool. Yeah, let me know the situation. And then when it's out," he says, "give us a shout and we'll circulate it." I was like, you've not got a problem with the title at this point? And he's like, nah, that's fine. And then started writing it, planned it, booked in for my first Fringe run in Edinburgh, which again, some might say is a foolish decision to do like a show specifically about a video game. But yeah, sent it to Miles. Miles just retweeted it once and the entire run sold out.
Wow.
Madness. And then off the back of that, we took it to a few more festivals and a couple of agents picked it up and they went, look, do you want to tour it? And I was like, yeah, okay, let's do that. That sounds fun. And just, we would go around different parts of the country for like almost 18 months, just talking to people about Football Manager and realizing just how much that game meant to people. And it was mint. It was really, really great. Really great. Just like getting in touch with like, cause like when you do stand up, like some of you'll have all seen, like comedians come on stage, they take the mick out of people and that. And I don't want to sit in the front row because they're going to make me, make me part of the show. And I was very conscious when we were doing this, that everyone that turned up was going to be part of the show, but for the right reasons, because they all brought stories to the show and they wanted to talk about their saves and their favorite signings and their players. So like I made them the stars essentially. And we did one in Nottingham. And I says to this lad, I says, what's your name? I says, what you do for a job? And he gave me his name. I forget what his name was. And I says, what do you do for a job? And he goes, I'm the Ajax manager. And I was like, yep, that works. That works for me. And then his mate pipes up and he goes, I was his assistant. I was like, fine, let's do that. This is mint. And we had some lads in Leicester who we did the show, and I spoke to these lads after, 5 lads, and said, they said, oh, we like our thing is we manage 2nd division Belgian clubs. That's the level of people that turn up to the show, right? Like 2nd division Belgian clubs. And they said that for their lads' holiday, what they did was all 5 of them organized to go and visit these football teams, right? And then buy shirts of the football teams and then chant for players who obviously weren't real, right? And they got their names printed up on the back of the shirts and that. And I was like, this is incredible levels of devotion. Like, well done, lads. That's superb. And then what was interesting is about 4 or 5 weeks ago, Mrs. J was on a works call with a guy at work, and she goes, oh, your husband's Tony, isn't he? And she was like, yeah. And he was like, did he do a show about Football Manager? And she was like, yeah. And she went, right, because me and my mates we went to see him in Leicester, and we went to tour Belgium, and she went, he speaks about you in the show. So it turned out that she now works with the lads who were part of that. So I was like, small world.
Bloody hell. And well, just before we get into more Football Manager stuff, I think that's probably a good time for a quick break. So we'll be back very soon.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, our holiday you're saving.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. This season, enjoy spacious, comfortable rooms and friendly service when you book with Hilton instead. Hilton for the stay.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
On December 12th, Disney Plus invites you to go behind the scenes with Taylor Swift in an exclusive 6-episode docuseries.
I wanted to give something to the fans that they didn't expect. The only thing left is to close the book.
The end of an era. And don't miss Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour, the final show, featuring for the first time the Tortured Poets Department. Streaming December 12th, only on Disney Plus.
And welcome back to How We're the Podcast, sponsored by LiveScore Bet. And we just started getting into the Football Manager stuff there, Tony, with your stage show. But what I was going to say was, and I'll hold my hand up and include myself in this, it's amazing the amount of people who, when you start talking about Football Manager, the almost turn around because the show was called It Ruined My Life. But that you go, well, imagine what I would have been if it wasn't for Football Manager. But you never regret it.
No, absolutely not. And I think looking back now, the title's not great. It's not ideal. But then again, like Football Manager played a significant part in my growing up. It's not really that snappy a title. So I figured, like, from an artistic perspective, let's narrow it down. But it is a little bit of that thinking, like, would life have been different had we not spent so much time playing video games? Could I have put my energies into stuff elsewhere? Because probably even as a comedian, I would say that I spent more time playing Football Manager than writing jokes, which, could potentially have had an impact on where I am in the circuit these days. Yeah, I guess that's the question, isn't it? Like, would life have been different, or was it all meant to be as it's meant to be? I don't know. It's difficult looking back at it now, thinking, however many years, 30 years, here I am still playing as well. I've still not managed to get rid of it. I know we spoke before about, yourself. You've managed to cut the cord. I had one lad at the show who said he was 5 years clean. I was like, oh, I hadn't considered that terminology, but
Well, I mean, just before we leave the comedy circuit, because I always find that an interesting one when people mention, you're on the comedy circuit, because I imagine all career paths in the entertainment field being tough to kind of navigate and stay in, I suppose. But imagine the comedy circuit that people keep mentioning, which, I suppose unless you're in comedy, you don't really know the ins and outs of it. But I imagine it being particularly a tough one to stay in and stay relevant and kind of, get the gigs, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a bit like it sort of has a bit of link with music, I suppose, really. Like the circuit itself's difficult because you're booked for varying degrees of time. So you start off doing 5 minutes, which to all intents and purposes sounds really easy. You go 5 minutes. Well, you're going to just talk for 5 minutes. Like, no, you'll be funny for 5 minutes. That's the thing. And but you're put in the middle of the show, which is nice because like the compares had to do the work to get the crowd ready. Then the openers had to go and like set the tone. And then in the middle of the show, they tend to put a couple of newer acts who can sort of like they can go and do 5 or 10 minutes, maybe find their feet. And then of course you've got the headliner, the closer, who basically comes and wraps it all up. So you do your 5s. And then you start getting towards your 10s and you're thinking everything's great because you're in the middle and it's all great. The show's ready to go. And then you fast forward to doing the opening 20 and your, what we call death rate, your comedy deaths, increase exponentially because it's really hard going from the fluffy, warm bit in the middle to being the first impression per se. The compare, I always say, is the first impression. They've got to go to nothing and create the show. And that's the bit that I really like because I was a better compare than I am as an act because I can judge and react better to what's in front of me than I might not necessarily have 20 minutes worth of scripted stuff that is perfect for this room. But I tell you what, I can make 20 minutes worth of stuff happen right now and weave things in and find stories and characters and we can have a great time. So that opening 20 becomes really tough. And then eventually you become the closer, which is interesting because everyone spends their time working towards being the headliner, but that means you're there at the end and you get the late drive home. So once you get to the headliner, everyone really wants to open for the same money so you can get away early and have an early night. And then you're doubling. So then you got like, you open one show and you drive from the show and close that show. And you realize like, ultimately you're on stage for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, but the vast majority of your time is just spent in the car. Driving around, being stuck in roadworks and 50-mile-an-hour zones and diversions. And it's that's the less glamorous side of the industry, I suppose, really. And then being away every single weekend, you're in a different city, which again is cool. It's really nice, but it's not as viable when you've got a family, Some comedians I know have managed to make it work for them. For me, it just wasn't going to work. It wasn't sustainable with 2 young kids who were very, very similar ages. Like you'd maybe get a hotel booked for you and your wife or your partner. But I was like, well, if we're going to take the kids, I'm then going to have to book accommodation. So it's coming out of my fee. So I'm not making any money at that point now. And I just looked at it and thought, do you know what? Like we can hold it for now. We can always come back to it. It's not a pressing issue to be on the road constantly. But it was great though. Like you just get to meet some really, really interesting people and like friends for life now, for like sort of names that you maybe wouldn't think you'd ever tread paths with, but so interesting. Some of the conversations you end up with, and then like just the experiences you share together going, oh, do you remember that gig? Like, oh yeah, I remember that. And it's 5-10 years down the line, you still remember the gig that was great, but you remember the ones that were awful so much more, much more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had Justin Moorhouse on fairly recently, who of course was young Kenny from Phoenix Nights, and it was interesting talking to him because one of the topics we're going into was comedy and geography. Because I always find, when I went away to university, I almost had to kind of, tailor, if you were making a little joke or a little wind up or something like that, something that worked with my mates in the Northeast. Just wouldn't. Everyone was going, hang on, what you're saying there? That's a bit, tough. I mean, did you find that in certain areas of the country?
Yeah, absolutely. Like language doesn't travel as well as you thought. Like so, certain local references don't work. Like things that people call stuff doesn't always travel. I mean, you'll see content occasionally online will come up like, oh, what do you call this? And it's like it's clearly like a roll. Someone's like, oh, it's a bomb cake, and it all kicks off, and you're like, oh, does it even matter what it's called? Like. Just it's lazy content is what it is, right? But so you'd get bits of that, or you get like accents don't travel as well either. So we used to notice we go up to gig in Glasgow quite a lot because it's not too far from the northeast. It's like a couple of hours, and I've got a lot of family from Glasgow. Like my family are all from Paisley, right? So that's a proper Glasgow. So I'd turn up. And you'd hear like all these, and I hate to say it, but you'd hear all these Southern comics, right? Southern English comics coming up going, oh, they just don't like us English up here in Scotland. They don't like the English. And I'm like, right, I'll go on stage and let's see what happens, right? And it's just, no, they don't like your accent. Like they hear the Northeast and they go, one of us, it's fine. And it's like, and it's not that you're better or that you're, it's just, there's certain things tune in. Like I go and gig in London. I find it harder gigging in London because of my accent. And my accent's not particularly strong. But there is that thing of they're not tuned into hearing it, and it's a much more international audience as well. So maybe some of your inflections, some of your tone, your pacing, your pitch, you've got to adjust it, and you're adjusting it on the fly for the room. So things like that happen. It's interesting. You mentioned Justin, and I listened to that episode by the way, and it was class. And I always love listening to Justin. He's one of my favorite comedians.
He's brilliant.
But he's also the cause of one of my most painful comedy deaths. And we talk about this whenever we see each other. We did Deershed Festival in Thirsk about 7-8 years ago or something now. And it was an incredible lineup, by the way. The comedy tent was stacked. I was the worst act on the bill by a long way. Like they were amazing. Mark Watson was closing, and it was just brilliant, right? Justin was hosting it. So he was the compere for the whole day. And it was a mixed crowd, about 400 or 500 people in this massive marquee. Kids, adults, everybody in there. Everyone's smashing it. They're having an amazing gig. I'm like, this is just set up. We're going to have a brilliant time. And it was the time of the Iceland Viking the big clap.
Yeah.
Do, right?
Harry Hudson and Kane and all that.
Yeah. So Justin got the whole tent doing this thunderclap to get me on. And I was like, and I remember watching it from the stage going, oh, this is not going to work, right? But everyone's loving it. And I go on stage and I died for 20 minutes. They hated me. It was silence for 20 minutes, right? And I was like, and it doesn't matter what I had in my head. I was trying everything and nothing was landing. They just didn't like me at all. And at the end of the set, this little kid, he must have been about 7 or something, came right up to the stage, and I saw him from the back end of the marquee, walked all the way up to the stage, held up a picture that he'd drawn of me during the show, and he went, I've drawn a picture of you, and I went, and he handed it to me, which is a beautiful gesture. But I held it up and went, is that how little respect I've got in this show right now? That a 7-year-old was allowed to walk through you all with a picture of me, and he figured that wouldn't interrupt the show. It's just like, I'm going. I've had enough.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Justin Morehouse is absolutely brilliant, absolutely
he's so
fantastic.
good.
But yeah, and Mark Watson, I think he was fortunate enough to. I'm sure he did the Taskmaster series with Bob Mortimer, which
Yes,
must
yeah.
have been unbelievable. But anyway, I was just going to say, I suppose all of this, one of the things that it led to, I suppose, was of course being host of the FM show. So how did all that come about?
So that basically that came out of lockdown, to be honest. So all the Football Manager's stand-up stuff had kind of made me a bit typecast in the comedy industry, in the comedy circuit. So there was a few bookers wouldn't book me for shows because they thought all I was going to do was talk about video games, right? So they were like, well, this is what you do, isn't it? I'm like, no, that's what I do on tour. Like what I do on stage is different. So I was like, it's a bit frustrating. I sort of felt like I've been a bit blocked in that sense. And I was getting a bit wound up about it. And then like lockdown had happened, and me and a mate of mine he's another presenter. We were just sort of talking during lockdown and that, and we were both sort of finding the whole thing a bit difficult. And like my industry, of course, had closed down, comedy. His industry as presenting had closed down. He was a bit frustrated. We were sort of talking a lot, and we were like saying, look, we just need to get our feelings out and try and like connect with people again. Like we're used to doing that. Where's the dopamine hit or the connection? And we were playing a lot more Football Manager at the time. He got back into it. And he said, I saw you at the Lowry in Manchester when you did that show. And he says, and I remember thinking there was something we could work together on. And we never quite knew what it looked like. But we said, we both sort of said, well, look, should we try a podcast? Like, why not? We haven't, I've done podcasts in the past for comedy. I've never thought about a Football Manager one before. Should we just try it? There must be people that would be interested in it. SI had given the game out as well for free over lockdown, I think, to help people through the COVID period. So like numbers were up. Twitch was starting to take off, like streaming services and platforms for people watching people play games was starting to take off. And we're like, let's just have a go, right? And we started a show called Football Manager Therapy because it was literally that for us. It was just like using it as a, Football Manager is the vehicle, really. And we did that I clocked out at episode 99. I wanted to get to 100, but I got a phone call from Ian McIntosh, who was the head honcho at The Athletic. And he said, look, we've been watching the show. Would you be interested in coming and hosting a show for us about Football Manager? And I was like, yeah, I think I could do that. That sounds like a good idea. So I left Football Manager Therapy, went to do the Football Manager show at The Athletic, working with my mate RDF Tactics, Aaron, and then we had Steve Hankey, who was a producer. We actually got to work with Dougie Critchley as well, who was our guest producer for one episode. So me and Dougie have now connected from that moment, which is really, really nice. There's a great picture actually of me and him at the playoff final at Wembley. I managed to collar him just as he was walking up and down doing content. I was only a couple of rows from the front. I was like, Dougie, got a nice picture there with us too. So we stay in touch quite a bit. And then the Athletic contract finished. So I was like, well, what do we do? So I thought, you know what, the momentum's there. Let's just build an independent podcast. And yeah, we've started growing that. So there's now 4 of us on the show, which I'm sure you can relate to. There are 4 people trying to run a podcast. And yeah, we took it into the YouTube space, which again had its challenges because we are trying to train an audience who are used to watching YouTube videos of Football Manager, but this is a podcast. So the views are really, really good for what it is. And the audience are now getting it and they're on board with it. And we've got the audio platform as well. So yeah, it's fun. Like weekly show gives us something to talk about. It was hard when FM25 was cancelled and FM26 has come out, and that's to, if we say, mixed reviews. Lots of people don't like it. They find it not particularly immersive or enjoyable. So we've had to ride that a little bit. But yeah, I think it's good. It's scratched that creative itch, I suppose, really, where being on stage hasn't been possible, but we've got something going on. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And next time, Dougie's obviously a good friend of the podcast, he's been on, I think he's got his hat-trick ball now, but next time I speak to him, I have to speak to him about eating that Big Mac meal on... that. A bit of an interesting talent, Dougie. I don't think anybody knew. But anyway, just before, I want to kind of circle back to the modern stuff that you mentioned, the controversy around 25 and 26 and all of that. But I want to get your history, because everyone's got a Football Manager game history. And I go, my first football management game was on the Spectrum. I had Tracksuit Manager and I had Kenny Dalglish's Soccer Manager on the Spectrum. So where did it start for you?
I had both of those as well. They were both absolutely incredible games, them two. I had them. I had Kevin Tom's Football Manager, the original Football Manager.
Yeah, that was early 80s it came out, wasn't it?
Very, very early. I think, because we actually got to interview him for the FM show. He lives in Holland now. He lives in Amsterdam. And we got to interview him. Super lovely guy, like really, really lovely guy. And I didn't realize it had come out originally in 84. So I must have been playing like either an older version, like it had been out for a while, and then eventually got it to like play on the Spectrum or the Commodore. And tapes, by the way, younger listeners, tapes.
And the big, I had for the old Atari, I had the big proper floppy disks.
The big
actual floppy,
5 and something inches or 5 and a quarter, whatever. Yeah, so we had them half an hour to load as well. So I had Kevin Tom's Football Manager. I had Tracksuit Manager. Did you ever come across Premier Manager? I think it was called Premier Manager, and this one didn't have any player names in it. So what you'd do is you'd buy a player. So say, for example, I'd buy Sunderland's number 5, right? And whenever I went to the next team and that player had come in from, I then had to input that player's name as to what it was, and I'd just make it up, like, or I'd have the actual name, and I'd be like, right, that's what they're called. But obviously, there's no license or anything like that, so it just had like you'd buy their defender or you'd buy their fullback, and you had to build your own world that way. So I think it was Premier Manager it was called. And then from there, I once Champman came out in 92, 93, like it was an obvious one. I was straight in. I was very much of the video game generation, so I'd have been 12 when Champman came out in 92, and it was just the thing at school. Like everybody did it at school. Everyone's backs of their notebooks were just like 4-3-3s, 4-4-2s, lists of players that you'd sign on Champman. And yeah, it sounds sort of like almost cliche that that's what it was, but that is literally what it was. I remember printing out lists of players that we might want to sign, and they weren't like attribute heavy or whatever, or data heavy these days. It was just a little box and then like some text that you'd sort of like follow. So I had a bit of that, but oh my word, it was like something we'd never seen before, but it was so playable.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, because I remember getting the Amiga 1200. I think I must have been up around 10-ish, a couple of years either way. But I was off and running after that. And, going back through the games, I mean, God, you could list them then. And you're talking about, mid-90s, early to mid-90s. Tactical Manager, The Manager, On the Ball, by the way, with its brilliant background music. I mean, someone needs to take that and sample it and produce a song with that music, because it's still on YouTube somewhere. I was listening to that the other day. All of the old Premier Managers, because you went through Premier Manager 1, 2, 3, Ultimate Soccer Manager.
Yes. Yeah, I love that one.
And then, of course, there was Championship Manager, and then they brought out the first, because the first one didn't have proper players. Second one came out with the proper players, and then you had Championship Manager Italia as well, because Serie A was massive then. But it was like a golden era, wasn't it?
This was the thing. Like, so anyone who plays it now, complain and going, oh, they've only got 80 odd leagues or whatever in the game now. Back in the day, and I hate to be the guy who goes back in the day, right? But when you originally played Champ Manager, you could only manage in England. You couldn't even manage in Scotland. If you wanted the Italian teams, you had to buy another version of the game to play just as Italian teams. You had to buy another version of the game to manage in France, to manage in Germany, to get the Benelux edition. Like, the Spanish version was its own separate game, and there was no way of interlinking it. So nowadays, when you can have these like really great journeyman careers where you start in South Africa and then you end up in Indonesia and you get to Malaysia and then you go to like the Dutch 4th division, and like just wasn't possible back in the day. And other games as well around that time where you had Dino Dini's Goal, you had Kickoff, you had Sensible World of Soccer, of course, as well, which is just like another absolute like staple of anyone that was growing up in the 90s. That blended that sort of managerial element and then the actual ability to play the games as well. And I think what was really interesting was that video games were clearly exploding everywhere. And it was like, it was all about playability back then. It was all about playability because graphics weren't really a thing. They were pushing it as much as they could. Like when the things like the SNES came out and they had Street Fighter and NBA Jam and like, you know, they were, for us at the time, we're like, oh my God, this looks incredible. You know, but looking at Tetris going, it's blocks moving. And this is the most addictive game in the world. Like it just literally is blocks and it's the best. And Champ Man was very much a case of like, there was just text. You'd follow the text. There was no ability to play the game, to like actually take charge and actually like sort of control the results yourselves, which when you explain it to people, and we try to explain it during the show, to people who've never played Champ Manager before, going, right, you're in charge of the team, you're just doing all the admin side of it. And people like, what? So you're doing work after work? And I'm like, well, now definitely, like looking at how in depth the game is now, yes, I am. I'm doing travel arrangements. I've got to organize the squad numbers because that's the thing. I've got to do the sales figures and the projections for income over the next 5 years. I've got to work out whether or not we've got our correct amount of prize money coming, and is that going to be able to afford us the luxury of an extra recruitment analyst in the future? I think he's on a full-time wage, but what if he wants a bonus? But is there going to be a contract dispute if he gets a managerial offer later on? Like now, I'm saying it out loud. I don't think I need this. Like I think it's too much now. I need a football delegation manager is what I need. It's just there's emails everywhere.
There's a brilliant story in Roy Keane's book where he says someone walked into his office and asked him about what soup he wanted on the coach for the away game, and he was like, "Why should I care about what soup is on the team coach?" But actually, just on that point, because I mentioned Ultimate Soccer Manager there, where you could give cheeky bungs or you would get offered bungs, and you could build the stadium. You could even put little ticket offices where you want, or little club shops, or a little burger van where you wanted around this. Do you think there was an element of fun then in some of the games that has maybe been lost?
Oh, 100%. Like, and even now, like in the football manager community, like people are still desperate for stadiums. They're still desperate for building your own stadium. And I can see it. I can get it. Like, I don't know where I fully sit on it myself, because there's part of me looks at it and goes, it's just an unnecessary thing to have to worry about now. And like, the more powerful the game gets, the more your hardware needs to improve. So like people playing on laptops, like, do you need to see another stadium being built up? But I like managing in the lower leagues. So I like seeing the progress from my team. So I'd like to see the idea of a stadium being built before my very eyes. And I don't know, is it enough to do? Is it a manager's job is the argument? But you can take transfers out of managers' hands these days.
Yeah. Well, I was going to mention, because you mentioned Premier Manager, and actually Premier Manager, and I knew a lot of mates who hated this, but I actually loved it because that game, and all of them did, I'm sure, right up to Premier Manager 3, it forced you to start off with a club that was then in the GM Vauxhall Conference, and you had to start there. But but I'm sure if Football Manager went down that route now, there'd be completely, everyone would go absolutely crazy. But I think it's almost a good thing to say, no, you're starting from the bottom.
I think so. I mean, but then again, it depends upon how much time you've got to devote to it, really. I mean, I'm 45, right? I'm 45-year-old. I've got a wife. I've got 2 kids, like 6 and 7-year-old. I've got a job. I create content on an evening. I stream Football Manager. I make a Football Manager YouTube podcast. I shouldn't really have the time to be sat having a second job. Like, this should be an escape from all the stuff that I've got going on. Yeah. It should now be for me. Click, game, go. Right. Like, I'm not bothered what the training looks like. That's not my job. Right. I'm not a PT. Someone else can do the training. Right. I'll do the scouting. Fine. I'll do the scouting, but I've also got scouts who can do that for me. Like, I will love a long-term save because that's just how I play it. But I appreciate that there are some people who go, I'm playing 3 seasons, right? I'm going to pick Man City. I'm going to win the Champions League and I'm done. And I totally understand that. I totally get that. For me, that doesn't work because it's not how I play the game. Like, I genuinely, and this is going to sound really weird, I genuinely got upset this year because Sunderland are in the Premier League on Football Manager. Because part of me was going, where's the challenge? Like, at least the last game that came out, FM24, because of course 25 didn't happen. 24 we were in the Championship. 23, 22, 22 we were in League One, right? That's a proper, right, start in League One. We'll graft our way all the way back up to the Premier League. We'll have a lovely time. This year, I've started in the Premier League and it was don't get relegated. Yeah. I mean, spoiler alert, I got relegated, but that's just one of the ways that I manage, unfortunately. But yeah, like you could theoretically jump to the Champions League fairly quickly, as we're showing now. Like, for me, yeah, that length of story, that investment, it just wasn't there this year on that.
Yeah. Here's my 30-second story with Guinness. As soon as my sister and I get home for the holidays, we don't even unpack. We head straight to our pub. The bartender already knows our order, Guinness and fries. We laugh all night, catch up with old friends, and walk home with faces sore from smiling. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. That was my 30-second story with Guinness.
Guinness Draft Stout. Please enjoy responsibly. Imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
This episode is brought to you by McAfee.
Finish your fantasy lineup?
No, but I'm joining this paid group chat with insider info.
Dude, seriously? Forward it to me. Security alert from McAfee. That group's as legit as that knockoff jersey you're wearing.
McAfee's scam detector is available in all McAfee plans for as little as $39.99 for your first year. Learn more at McAfee.com/online protection.
Well, just going back to that, we talked about that first Championship Manager because it had such an impact then. But it's really weird when you think about it, because I mentioned all those other games, and they try to have gimmicks, whether it was a stadium, whether it was placing burger vans, doing your strips. Remember, Premier Manager had sponsorship.
Yeah.
But it was funny because Championship Manager was, in some ways, the game that made the least effort to do fancy gimmicks. But yet, that was the one that everyone went to.
Yeah, it was bizarre. And it I think because it just made no qualms about what it was. You're right, there was just no gimmicks. It was just numbers. Like, the idea that you could sort of like attribute a number to a player and we would all like instantly go, oh yeah, he's got pace of 18, he's brilliant. Like he's got finishing of 20, he's excellent. Like, we don't necessarily know who half of these players were. There's still players that, of course, that we love off the back of Football Manager because we were told they were going to be great in real life and they weren't, Freddie Adu says hello, by the way. In case anyone's remembering. In fact, actually, I even got, here's a thing. I got into football shirt collecting again during COVID. I revisited that sort of part of my childhood to go back and buy all the football shirts I had when I was a kid and get them in adult sizes. So I trekked myself to the Sunderland, the Lambtons shirt where we came back to the Stadium of Light. So I got that in long sleeves. So that's really, really lovely. Got that. I got the Kevin Phillips sort of Vaux, so Reg Vardy one with the Nike, and really, really shiny again, long sleeve. And then I got a DC United Freddie Adu number 9 shirt, and I don't think there's many of them kicking about. Purely bought that for the Football Manager vibe alone. But yeah, you're right. There was nothing else in the game other than just tactics and no graphics, no airs, no graces. It was just playable, and it was that world that we all. I think it was the thing because it felt the most authentic, and it felt the most real, and it felt the closest to being in charge of the team.
Yeah. Well, actually, funny you mentioned some of the game legends, because that brings us on to Championship Manager 2001-2002, which I have to mention because I think this was the pinnacle. I still play this one today, and there's a big community online that keeps updating it, and they bring out updates all the time, and they bring because I think that game got released as well, so you could just download that one for free. So that was my favourite, and that had legends like Cherno Samba in that one, Maxim Tiscalgo. Belarusian striker, I think.
Mhm.
But it's incredible how these games you're talking, and it's funny because my lad asks me, and I'm like, this game is 25 years old, pretty much.
Mhm.
But it's amazing how these live on and people still attach themselves to those older versions.
Oh, 100%. And like the people who are listening to the episode, like they'll not know this, like, but you can see this behind me, Chris, right? Right behind me there, that picture is a list of 100 Championship Manager legends, right? And it's like a little bit of art that I've got. There's 100 Champ Manager legends. And on that is players like John Curtis. Like, you know, like you wouldn't necessarily remember John Curtis, yeah?
Yep.
Do you remember Billy Jones signed for Sunderland?
Yep.
Right? Billy Jones. Billy Jones was incredible on Champ Manager. I was so excited when Billy Jones turned up at Sunderland because he was dubbed the new Jamie Carragher, right? He could play everywhere, but not necessarily in real life. You know, Richie Wellens is a name that's familiar to people. Like, we all remember discovering Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Yep.
We discovered Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Taribo West. If you say Taribo West to any person who's, I would say, 35 and above, right? They will tell you the greatest free transfer in football history, right?
100%.
Taribo West. There's a certain generation of Football Manager players who will tell you Mark Kerr is better than Zinedine Zidane. The Scottish Zinedine Zidane, 50 grand got you Mark Kerr. Yeah. There's moments with this game and players with this game that just resonate. And I got interestingly, when we were streaming over the pandemic, I was streaming Football Manager one day, and there's a guy in the chat, and he was in from Norway, right? And he was typing away, and he says, I work at Odds Ball Club, like OBK, right, Norwegian football team. And I was like, Odds Ball Club? That's Tommy Svindal Larsen's old team, innit? That was the only thing I knew was Tommy Svindal Larsen, right? and he was just like, yeah. And so we started talking away. And eventually, right, so we became like sort of contacts and that. And they set a thing up for me where I became their official Football manager. And we did a press conference to announce me taking the job on Norwegian telly. Like, it makes no sense.
And I always remember seeing Michael Duff as a manager, thinking, I used to get him in the England squad all of the time, buy him from Cheltenham, and that was that. But like I said, I've come out and said my favourite version. If you had to pick one, if you said, right, we have to get rid of all of them, and we can only keep one version, which one would you keep?
It's like trying to work out which one of your kids you'd get rid of, isn't it? Do you know what? 0102, it's just everyone goes for that one straight away. And I completely understand why, because it felt revolutionary at the time. And I don't know whether that's because everything else at the time felt great. Like, you know, like life was good. For me, maybe Champman 97, 98, possibly that holds a space in my heart.
Yeah.
Because I try to work it out as going, what's my favorite version of FM and Champ Manager? And I always think it comes back to what was my favorite save. Yeah. And that's what really resonates with me. So if I've got a brilliant save, for me, that's the best version. So I'll probably go with Football Manager 2010, because that's the one that spawned the Blythe Spartan save, which spawned the stand-up show, which spawned the tour, which spawned everything else. So without that, I don't think any of this is possible. So I would go back there, and I even went back and played it a year ago. I just dropped straight back in, and it just felt comfortable, and it was just right. And maybe it was part of the fact that I'd built that world and that universe, and I knew everything in it, and it was perfect. But what I enjoy now is there's a Danish guy called the Mad Scientist, and he makes databases of old.
Yeah.
So he just picks 1 year of football and he creates a database. So he made the 98, 99 database. That's the year that we won the championship, wasn't it? To go into the
105
right?
points. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So he made that year, and we did it on stream as we picked Sunderland for like a 12-hour stream. Went, right, we're getting promoted today, right? And it was the most fun I've had. Just going back, looking at the players that were, of course, around at the time. We had a strike force of Kevin Phillips, Niall Quinn, and £300,000 worth of Miroslav Klose. What a strike force that would have been in real life.
And then you would have had Michael Bridges is still there as well.
Michael Bridges couldn't get a look in. He had no chance. Michael Proctor, he was nowhere to be seen.
Dicchio was still around, wasn't he?
Danny Dicchio was a pipe dream at that point. He's like, see you later, Danny Dicchio. Nicky Summerby was just like, his leg got burnt out that year, just pinging crosses in for them three. 110 goals between the three of them. Jackie White's market was renamed Miroslav Klose's market. It was the greatest thing. Oh, honestly, we had such a good time with that.
Well, that's it. You know, like you've just said, we build these universes around us when we're playing these games, when they're just kind of text and spreadsheets or whatever you want to call it. But when Football Manager went to do the live action, do you think at that point it maybe lost something?
Yeah, definitely. Like for me, I was making it, like you make it all up in your head. That's the thing. Like you make it all up in your head. And then when you could start to see it, it was like, okay, cool. That's a thing. I get to see these goals now and it looks good and it looks nice. And I think for us, from the older perspective, it is maybe different. And I'm kind of like been in a few conversations over the last few years, like sort of people saying like the graphics need to get better. Do the graphics need to get better? Like the older players, like, no, they don't. They can stay a bit rubbish. It's not really a problem. But from a visual content creator perspective now, I'm looking at it thinking, this game looks like it was made in 2004. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're comparing it to FIFA, you're comparing it to Pro Evolution Soccer. Like if you're making that as a visual medium, it needs to look better. It has to look better. That's not the appeal of the game, but that's not to say that you shouldn't put some pride and joy into it. You know, like it's all well and good like having the greatest car design in the world, like the best car under the hood, but then putting a really bad like sort of shell over it and just go, it drives good though. Like, you know, it looks awful. No one's going to buy it. Like no younger people are going to look and go, that's the class car that we want. And yes, the graphics and the visuals aren't the be all and end all, but I think now you've got a younger generation. We're getting older. Like eventually we're going to tap out, like, you know, and go, I haven't got time to commit to play this game anymore now. My kids are looking at it, like let's say they're 6 and 7, and they're looking at it and they're used to better graphics than this already. But they're sort of looking at it going, all right, what is it? You know, how are we doing it? You know, what's Football Manager? And they're going to play it, but they're going to be looking at this going, this needs to get better because they're not used to having to find immersion in a game. Whereas we were, when we were kids, we could look and we could play Tetris and we could play Pong and we could play Frogger, you know, like we were used to having to find the joy without the graphics. Whereas now you look with your eyes first, you sample, it's like food, you know, you eat with your eyes before anything. So yeah, I do think there needs to be a bit of a brush up on the aesthetic.
Yeah, well, like we said, we're a similar age, and you know, I haven't really properly played. I would guess for the best part of 10 years. I keep buying them every so often when they're reduced to go, and I'll have a look. And then when I can't play a pre-season in a night, I go, oh well, I just haven't got time for this. But do you think that there's maybe a market out there for something that's a little bit stripped down?
Absolutely. I mean, the mobile game now is, the player base for that is, and I'm going to be very careful by saying the player base because it does come as part of your Netflix subscription. So some of these numbers may be mildly inflated. like in terms of how long people are playing the game, I wouldn't necessarily know. But like the mobile version is there. You know, you can get that as part of your Netflix account. Personally, I don't play that version because it's not a version that I would particularly want to play. I don't play games on my phone. I think maybe that's come from comedy. I used to treat that as a work device, and so I don't want to be tied to it constantly. Whereas there is other versions you can play on your iPad for like the touch. There's a console version as well for people who want to just, you know, they have their console, their Xbox or their PlayStation in the front room, do that and just have a gaming system. Because not everyone wants to play on a laptop anymore. Not everyone plays on a gaming PC. So there is alternatives, and I do think that there's probably room for another alternative to strip down a little bit more. There's always going to be people who want more, and they will be catered for. But I think they're a smaller percentage than the whole. And how that looks going forward for Sports Interactive and Sega to work that out, I don't really know how they're going to do that. They might have to create another couple of different versions and really cater for it that way and advertise it as very different versions. Because there's going to be a point when I'm looking at this game going like, I can't. Like I play the game online for streaming on Twitch, and I use it as a kind of like, I play it and viewers are interacting and we have a nice time, and so I can take my time with it. Could I sit, as you've just said there, could I literally sit and spend all night and not get past pre-season if it's just me on my own? Probably not. I'm probably not doing that anymore nowadays. Like, so the fact that I'm doing it on stream is probably what's keeping me in. Like, whereas if it's a case of now, if I picked a laptop up and went, right, I'm going to start this and I'm not getting any far, I'd probably just go, you know what? Nah, it's not for me now. So yeah, I think there's got to be, there will be something in the future, but what that looks like, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, well, as you said, it was a bit controversial with Football Manager 25 getting cancelled. It was a big thing that kind of promised it. It seemed like a big blow that they couldn't get that out in time. So, I mean, was Football Manager, because of that cancellation, did that increase where the expectation around Football Manager 26 that they thought, well, if they're not delaying an hour, it must be something big?
Yeah, I think what it did was, so they were moving their game engine. So they made a decision to take the game engine from whatever they were currently using with what was up to 24. So they started that back in, I think it was FM10 or FM14 or something. It was all on the same engine. They moved it over into a platform called Unity. So rebuilding the game from scratch, essentially. And it just took longer than they thought, and things didn't work and things weren't linking as it was supposed to, and it just wasn't playable from what we understand. So people's expectations were already high for a brand new FM25. The idea that it was on this new platform, it was going to look better, feel better, play better. People were excited. Then, of course, there's the news that it was getting delayed, and then it got cancelled. So there was a lot of frustration because people rely on the game coming out yearly. Some people were going, okay, fine, give them time, come back with 26, make it as good as it needs to be. And then when 26 came out, it wasn't good. Like it wasn't, it just didn't fire in the way that people expected it to. So people's expectations had risen and I don't think FM26 was ever going to live up to everyone's expectations because people had their own expectation. And that was the thing that could never be measured. Like, I looked at it and thought, I saw the Champman 4 debacle. Horrific. One of the worst games I've ever seen in my life. And here I am 20 years later still playing the game. But there are some people who've seen this 26 and for them, they're going, no, I'm not doing any more. They maybe haven't played the game for 20 years. Maybe they have. And they went, you know what? No, it's a good time for me to check out now, which is absolutely fine. But 27, 28, 29, I'm sure they're going to be great. But 26 is a tough one. It's a tough one. There's some stuff that's still lacking. There's some stuff that's still missing. They're going to put international management back in at some point, with the World Cup license. There's just a few things that just haven't quite fired and haven't quite mapped across. And yeah, some people just went, it's not for me this year, which is understandable.
Yeah. I mean, international football, like I said, whack a game on from 25 years ago, I can get offered the England job.
Yeah, and I think it was just like the problem with that is this year. I think it was this year was a bitter pill for that to take because you're put in. It's a World Cup year for a start, so the idea of not managing in a World Cup before the idea of even a World Cup license was being discussed felt like a massive own goal. And with the addition of women's football this year as well. And the international game is so synonymous with women's football that it's more important than the domestic game. It felt like they were given with one hand and taken with the other. So you were like, oh, right, here's women's football, but only some of it. And that was, of course, a bit of a frustration as well that was emanating out. But, they've said they're going to put it back in. Hopefully it's going to fit nicely. But yeah, as a starter, when you're sort of like going, here's the brand new game, minus some of the bits, it was like, okay.
Yeah. Well, last one on the game, because you mentioned 27, 28, 29, but it does feel like the game's at a bit of a crossroads with this one, with the cancellation, and then getting to this point where it's so, that, like you said, almost to the point where you're deciding what soup is on the team coach. Where does it go from here?
I've got no idea. Like, some people want it to get to, and we've joked on the podcast before as well, saying like, there is an argument to be made for nutrition options. Like, because some managers will have a say in that. And like, if the argument is will a manager do that in real life? There is an argument that in some clubs, I mean, Arsene Wenger famously brought nutrition in to football, Big Sam was one of the early adopters of sports science, like when he was at Bolton. So there's always going to be something. I mean, who wants to bring in a healer, a meditator, like, some like outward bound activities or escape rooms or whatever. Like, if you can imagine it, someone else has imagined it as well, and someone in football will think, if that gives me an extra 1%, we'll try it. But at what point do you realize it's just a video game and it doesn't really matter? Like, I don't know, and I'm thinking I'm maybe getting a bit old in the tooth now, because I'm starting to ask myself, going, it's just a video game. It doesn't matter. Why would anyone want that? But then you hear some people going, definitely want that. I definitely want nutrition in the game, because I reckon that would actually help the squad, and here's my understanding. Like, some people want to write a thesis. Do you know what I mean? Like, no, not at all. Like, some people want to do kit colours. They want to do the prices of the stands, negotiate TV deals. I don't even want to do tactics. Like, do you know what I mean? I want to just send me players out and go, right, you lot, you're footballers, you do it. Tell me what the result was at the end.
The old boot room, something like that. Just go out. Well, that's it. I mean, God, all the Sunderland players were at Ali Pali watching the darts. Maybe you could send them along, buy tickets for the place.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Here's Football Manager 28. You get to book whoever's performs for the Christmas party. Like, I don't want that.
Well, just on that, of course, you do the FM show, so I imagine you've got a lot coming up on that. So do you want to tell people how they can view it and how they can access it?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, so we're out. We do a show every single Thursday, so you can get that on YouTube by searching the FM Show Pod, or we're on Spotify and all of your other audio platforms as well for the FM Show Pod. And then we've got Patreon as well, which is sort of has some extra content on there as well, so you get some early access and you get another episode a week, which is really good. So yeah, we chat a lot of FM stuff. We got some interesting guests on. So some people in the Football Manager creator space, some people from outside there. We've had Miles on, of course, talking as the head of Sports Interactive. He came on and talked to us prior to FM 26. We had Steve Sidwell on, which was quite impressive. We managed to do a save game with Steve Sidwell, which was a link up with a whiskey provider, which may or may not have the same surname as me. We did a network save, which was quite good. So Steve got involved in that, and we went down to Newport, and so that was really fun. So we introduced him as an actual footballer to the game, which he quite enjoyed. So we have had him on. We've had some journalists on, some musicians, and yeah, it's a good time. So if that's your vibe, then yeah, come and check us out.
Brilliant. So get on that if you're a fan of Football Manager, or if you just fancy a bit of a laugh, obviously with Steve Sidwell and stuff like that. But very last one, Tony. We've got a double header coming up, Leeds and Man City at home. How many points do you reckon we're taking?
Well, at the start of the season, I had 0 written on my calendar, but given recent form, I mean, Leeds is now a difficult one. I think if you'd asked me a few weeks ago, I'd have been like, that's an absolute banker. Mm-hmm. We've got that, but they're coming into form right now, and Calvert-Lewin's playing very, very well. I'll take a draw at Leeds. I know I'd like a win. I'd like a win. But I do remember I was at the Stadium of Light when a certain James Milner made his debut. So I do remember that very, very fondly. Well, not very fondly, but I remember being there for that. So yeah, I'll take a draw there. And home to Man City. We owe them. We didn't really have much of a go at them against at the Etihad. So, and we've done it before. We've beaten Man City at the Stadium of Light before.
Anytime.
Last minuters.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 2 draws. I reckon we come out of this with 2 points. It might not be enough in the at the end of the season, but it's 2 more points towards Champions League. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
2 solid performances. Just quickly on that James Milner game, that was a Boxing Day game, which is frustrating because this one should be a Boxing Day game if it wasn't for TV. But everyone remembers it as a James Milner game. Can you remember? Because I was at the game as well. Can you remember who scored the winner?
No.
Exactly.
You can't, like, all I remember is James Milner.
Yeah, because he equalised for Leeds, and Robbie Fowler scored a penalty with 10 minutes to go and won the game for them. But nobody remembers that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
there you go.
I just remember the James Milner
Yeah,
goal.
I did it.
All right.
Yeah, I was really close to it as well, and he was only about 10 or something like that. But
He just come straight from the mine, hadn't he? And he's
yeah, down pit and all that. Yeah. But anyway, that's a perfect place to end, and it just leaves me to say thank you very much, Tony. Really appreciate it, and have a cracking Christmas, mate.
No, thank you very much for having me on. I've really enjoyed it, mate, and have a wonderful Christmas yourself as well, and hopefully see you soon. Yeah.
Brilliant. Good stuff. And thanks again, everyone, for listening. Don't forget, we'll have our big rotund quiz of the year over Christmas Day and Boxing Day. Before we get back into it, looking ahead to the Leeds and Man City games after that. But have a great Christmas, everyone. Hope you have a good one. But from us, bye for now.